Bangladesh is gearing up for an election tomorrow. Its first since youth-led protests 18 months ago toppled former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government, ending a 15-year rule. More than 300,000 security personnel have been deployed to maintain order after reports of violence surfaced in several polling centres. Two main coalitions, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and Jamaat-e-Islami, are vying for power. The Election Commission is vowing a smooth voting process. The outcome of the vote is being closely watched across South Asia, with the result likely to reshape regional dynamics. And for more on this story, CNA's senior correspondent Afifah Ariffin joins us live from Dhaka, and Neha Poonia is reporting live for CNA from New Delhi. Now let's start with you, Afifah. Now, given the high stakes of this election, how are authorities ensuring that the polls are conducted fairly?
That's right, Angela. Well, I'm here actually at a local school in the Dhaka 11 constituency, and behind me, this is a polling centre. So behind me, you can see some of the election officials there making some final preparations, arranging the desks, setting up the voting booths, because tomorrow these classrooms will be turned into polling stations once this centre opens at about 7:30 a.m. in the morning. Across the country, we know that the Election Commission says that all of the preparations have been completed in terms of delivering the ballot boxes, so setting up the polling stations across all 299 constituencies, one less than the 300 because one of the seats had to be postponed following the death of a candidate. But let's listen in to what else the Chief Election Commissioner said at a briefing this morning.
All electoral materials, including ballot papers, have already been distributed to the returning officers in respective constituencies and are currently being distributed polling center-wise. Training programs for polling personnel have been conducted nationwide to ensure professionalism and strict adherence to electoral procedures.
Now, officials here say that transparency and security remain their top priorities across the country. We know that hundreds of thousands of security personnel have been deployed to sort of guard polling centres, guard the transportation of election materials, and to ensure that there's no form of intimidation and unrest happening. And also to give a sense that this election process is one that is credible. We know that the Election Commission, they've invited hundreds of foreign journalists to come in and report. They've also invited thousands of local as well as international election observers to come in and have a look at the entire election process.
Now, Afifah, we know that the majority of voters will be casting their ballots for the first time since the end of ousted leader Sheikh Hasina's rule. Many of them are Gen Z, and at that time they might not be old enough to have cast their vote, but now they're out in full force. So what are their demands in this election?
Well, Angela, you know, over the last couple of days, I've been traveling around Dhaka and some of the suburbs outside of the city. And I've been speaking to a lot of people, you know, of different ages, but in particular the youths. And many of them tell me that they're very excited to be able to participate in an election that they see as free and fair. Of course, this follows a year and a half of unrest following that student-led uprising that triggered nationwide protests, and they overthrew the Sheikh Hasina government back in 2024. We know that youth votes, those aged between 18 and 37, they make up 44% of the electorate. Gen Z voters, about 28%. So that's a very sizable, influential voter demographic. And we have seen how throughout the campaign, all the political parties have been really rushing to garner the support of the youths. But their demands are very simple. What they want are better job opportunities, more equal access to getting these job opportunities, cleaner politics, and of course, you know, more accountability in their government. Several of them also told me that they see this vote as a chance to reset Bangladesh politics moving forward, a chance to push through the reforms that they were fighting for back when they had that student uprising back in 2024.
Afifah, thanks so much for that update. Now, for a more regional perspective, we go over to Neha Poonia in New Delhi. Now, Neha, how will the upcoming Bangladesh election affect India's strategic and also diplomatic ties with Dhaka? We know it has been affected with the extradition of Sheikh Hasina there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a crucial election. The entire region is watching, but particularly for New Delhi, a lot at stake here, given that for pretty much all of Sheikh Hasina's rule, and even before that, Bangladesh was a bright spot as far as India's diplomacy in the region was concerned, often touted as an example of what good neighborly relations between, countries in the region should look like. But with Sheikh Hasina's ouster, with her fleeing to New Delhi and her staying here, refusing to go back in New Delhi, in many ways refusing to hand her over to Dhaka, that has soured ties between the two countries. We've also seen anger towards Sheikh Hasina transform into anger against India in a lot of ways. Many youngsters that Afifah was talking about have been talking about how the new government that comes to power should put Bangladesh first and should have, we should have limited influence from outside powers, a reference to New Delhi and, its support of the Sheikh Hasina regime. Now, India's repeatedly said that as far as Sheikh Hasina's extradition is concerned, that's something that will follow due process. There is an extradition treaty in place, and according to that, Bangladesh may have to file a formal request in an Indian court, and that's not happened yet. But of course, also on the election in Bangladesh, India has repeatedly said it will work with whichever party wins, and that it wants to see democracy return to Dhaka. We've seen how the BNP, which is believed to be the front runner, has said that it will put Bangladesh first, but also wants good ties with New Delhi. Similarly, the Jamaat, which has allied with the student organizations, also says it wants better ties with neighbors in the region. But of course, any government that comes to power next will have to navigate the question about what happens to Sheikh Hasina, how much pressure they're going to put on New Delhi to send her back, and how New Delhi also answers the question going ahead.
Yeah, and if you take a wider look at geopolitics, how does New Delhi assess Beijing's growing role in Bangladesh? Do we expect it to recalibrate? Is it going to protect its strategic interests?
This has been a constant question that New Delhi has had to face in the region. It's not just Bangladesh. We've seen, a similar sort of question that Delhi is faced in Sri Lanka and Nepal, in Pakistan, but particularly with Bangladesh. Both countries have been trying to vie for growing influence through Sheikh Hasina's years as well. But given Sheikh Hasina's proximity to New Delhi and the sort of relationship the two countries shared, it was always believed that New Delhi had an edge. But with her ouster, with the rising anti-India sentiment in Bangladesh, that certainly opened up room for China to step in. And we are hearing from experts who are saying that they are expecting New Delhi's sphere of influence in Bangladesh to reduce in the coming years. This is particularly, of course, exacerbated by the state of bilateral ties. We've seen how China has, in recent weeks, signed a defense deal to build a drone factory near Bangladesh's border with India. It's been talking about pumping in more investment. There have been many meetings between the Chinese envoy and Bangladesh leadership. So, of course, all of this, is presenting a certain kind of picture which is being closely watched here in New Delhi. But analysts have been speaking to say that it's very unlikely that Bangladesh will cut out New Delhi entirely, because one, you cannot ignore geography. Two, they also have a lot of outstanding issues like trans-boundary river issues and various bilateral projects. All of that will have to be taken into consideration. But how the next government proceeds will entirely depend on the mandate it wins, experts say.
Neha, thank you so much for breaking all of that down for us. That was CNA's senior correspondent Afifah Ariffin reporting live from Dhaka, and Neha Poonia reporting for CNA from New Delhi.